SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music as we kick off a brand new week here, Rhino.
Howdy, howdy.
At first, what about this hurricane that's out there in the ocean, in the Atlantic? I don't feel good about this thing as it approaches Jamaica, right?
We ain't going to worry about it in the Magnolia State, but it looks like it might mess up Jamaica pretty good.
Have you seen the satellite photos? I don't know, man. That thing is tightly wound. That it seems even more impressive than the infamous Hurricane Katrina did. Who could forget those satellite images of that huge object out there in the Gulf with that super tightly strung hole there in the middle of it, also known as the eye. This dude is super impressive. I mean, I don't remember seeing it with Katrina, and maybe my memory's a bit short, but you see the eye, but the cloud imagery from the satellite photo is just so tight. I mean, it's just solid white with like no breaks, no streaks, which would indicate to me a super tightly wound storm expected to be a Cat 5, right? Is it already a 5? Maybe it is. Maybe it's been upgraded, I think.
Yeah, it was upgraded earlier this morning to Category 5.
Because I thought it was 4 last night, expected to escalate to a 5. Top winds, yeah, I'm looking at it now. You're right, 160 miles per hour, but it's 160 miles per hour of a big area. Wow. Estimates are that losses could reach $14 billion on Jamaica, $5 billion in Cuba, and then even higher. This is incredible. So certainly our prayers go out to the people of Jamaica. I hope they're out of harm's way. But what do they do, Rhino? How do you get off the island there to find higher ground and safety? I mean, it's not like here where you see this thing coming and a few days out you get on the roads and start driving north. You can't do that on an island. What do they do?
Usually in the Caribbean, they have shelters or hardened locations on the highest points.
Okay.
And they just hunker down and hope.
Man, that thing.
And that's just for the people that have access to that. I mean, there are those that are likely going to try to ride it out in their own homes, just like you have people try to ride it out in their own homes here in America. And that's hit or miss, depending on how strong the storm is, how it impacts them.
Yeah. Well, golly, just looking at that thing, are you seeing that? I mean, am I mean, it's that eye is almost a perfect circle, and doesn't that indicate super high winds, very well formed?
I mean, it indicates it's very well formed. Was it Wilma that was really tight like that? That they were worried about it, and it did some damage, but it wasn't nearly as much as they thought it was going to be.
Okay. Well, this thing looks eerie as it approaches. We shall stay in touch with that. It's day 27 of the old shutdown. that continues, as you know. So, and it's easy to determine what day it is because it equals the day of the month, the date of the month. In this case, October 27th equal the 27th day of the shutdown. We're in the territory of the second longest shutdown, rapidly approaching the longest shutdown. This one seems like it's durable, meaning that it's going to continue. In 95, it was about spending cuts. In 2013, it was about a health care plan. In 2018, it was about the border wall during the president's first term. This one is about, more than anything, about the Democrats' desire to extend the enhanced Obamacare premium tax credits, also known as subsidies. Those were juiced in the name of COVID in 2021. Do you get to the point where we say, when can we just declare that thing overdone and dead? It doesn't feel like that there's any interest in doing that on the part of many in this country, namely the Democrats. They want to ride that wave forever, don't they?
Oh, yeah, and there are some people that are still masking in the year of our Lord 2025.
I got to tell you, I passed someone on 49 last week, headed to the coast. I can't remember at what point I was, somewhere between here and McGee. And this was a random person walking in the median there, you know, with grass-covered median, separates the two sides. This was a person walking, honestly, I thought rather close to the edge, with traffic coming down at 65, 70 miles per hour, with a mask on. What in the heck is that all about? They worship masks, revere them like they're a sacrament. It feels like. Of course, these are the same people who also instigated the No Kings protest. They coronated Anthony Lock 'em up forever Fauci like he was a saint. And
he even had candles.
Exactly. And they revere these masks, seriously, like they're a rite of passage, a sacrament. They told you couldn't go to church. In some cases, you were not allowed to mourn the death of your loved ones. Remember that? And these people are grousing that Donald Trump is a king? Seriously? Give me a freaking break. You people invented. You just don't like who's got the crown. You're the ones that created the throne. You don't like who's got the crown.
That's why they're all up in arms about what he's doing at the White House.
That's exactly right.
It's going to be a permanent reminder that Trump was president.
Boy, you have to give the president credit. He knows how to get the hair on the back of their neck, doesn't he?
In fairness, it doesn't take a whole heck of a lot.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Oh, man. We also look like we may have a truce on trade with China. This is good news. That's, by the way, folks, why your money's looking good today. The Dow off its highs, but still up 204 points. The NASDAQ, that's where the big gains are, up 358. So, and the 10-year Treasury, though, still hanging around that 1.4%. Look at your funny money. It's up a lot today, but it's 115,000. It's still, 10, 11,000 off the high, but a good run for it. The other index is also in the green. So, investors feel good about perhaps bringing an end to this squabble over trade, and I hope the president succeeds. You had Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, yesterday on the various news channels, the news shows on Sunday, talking about having a, quote, framework for a trade deal. And this is welcome good news, especially for Mississippi's farmers We got lots of soybean farmers here in the Magnolia State, and China's a big customer for their trade, for their beans. But China says, okay, and it's part of their retaliation for the tariffs and so forth. We ain't buying any of your soybeans. But Secretary Bessent says, I think we may have a deal where the nation of China will, in fact, buy American soybeans. That's good news. It could be a sign of relief. Here's the only thing I would caution about. I know this is shocking. I don't trust communists. You remember that? We had a deal in the president's first term regarding trade, specifically around our farm production and our export of farm goods to China. They failed to honor it. I know you're shocked with that. Because communists lie. So I'm a little concerned, but I'm optimistic. Quote, this is what the secretary said. We have, quote, reached a substantial framework for the two leaders. Adding, quote, the tariffs will be averted. That's after the president threatened 100% tariffs if they didn't come to the table and negotiate. Coming right back, Jim Leggette at 10:35.
Hey, can you blow up some...
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Now back to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Once again, Jim Leggette, lecturer of economics, Mississippi State University, will join us in the next segment, get his thoughts on everything that's going on with respect to the economy. Now, something that certainly affects every one of us, that's the price of energy. And in particular, we tend to focus quite a bit on the price of gas, as we should. And what we saw was a very moderate, shall we say, price of gas during the president's first term. That's because he had issued what you could say were fossil fuels-friendly policies and regulations, which encouraged oil and gas exploration and production, thus increasing the supply of oil and gas and keeping the price in check. And then you get Joe Biden in there, who right off the bat kowtowed to the left and his party that said, we've got to kill those fossil fuels. Can't have any of that. News for you there, folks. Fossil fuels are critical, essential to the flourishing of human beings. We ain't at the point, may never get to that point, where we can just abandon our need for fossil fuels. So, now, I'm an all-of-the-above energy guy. You and I have talked about that many times. But you got to be practical and reasonable and thoughtful and just have a clue. The problem is Democrat policies are not driven by pragmatism or common sense. They're driven by ideology. It's all about ideology. And in many cases, appeasing, it just seems like they're more into appeasing the most radical sect of their base. And often, as you know, not left enough for them. And they keep pulling them further and further. Well, fascinating interviews I caught yesterday, Maria Bartiromo out in the Permian Basin, talking to oil and gas executives. And probably the best explanation I've seen about fracking and how that works. Really good. Really well done. Bravo. It's fascinating, this technology that allows the oil and gas companies to essentially get oil out of rock. It's amazing. Who would have thought? And interviews with Exxon and a couple of other smaller oil and gas companies that aren't exactly household names, but nonetheless a critical part of the supply of the product of fossil fuels. And here's what they said, just in a quick nutshell, that we're seeing Saudi Arabia step up production rather significantly. We're seeing demand wane a bit. That's mainly because China's economy is sucking. And, they don't care. It's all about, you like to say, saving face and the image projected of strength. And look at us, communists. We're killing those dirty capitalists. Yeah, but, hey, Xi Jinping, we're starving here, you see. And he would say, oh, that's okay if we lose a few million, right? That's for the good of the motherland here. I'm not really exaggerating much here either. That's how it works.
Yeah, the powers that be in Beijing barely pay lip service to the rural farmers that live in western China.
So true. That's absolutely true. Human life is expendable in their culture if it is for the long-term goal and cause, which in their case is defeating the dirty capitalist. I mean, they envision a world where the sickle and hammer flag of the CCP hangs over every country. That literally is their goal. Well, these oil and gas execs, fascinating. What they said was, okay, so right now we're seeing somewhat of a decrease in the price at the pump, and that's driven by the price per barrel. But here's the good news for consumers. These oil and gas guys say they expect that to continue. They are ramping up production as a result of deregulation and more fossil fuels friendly policies overall. And that often, of course, centers around the EPA and also let's see, what else was I thinking about there that's at play there? You got the EPA and the permitting process. So and often that affects or is part of the EPA. But in many cases with respect to the EPA, does it not feel like they dream up species of animals sometimes? Oh, they're endangered, and you can't drill anything here.
Well, no, they don't dream it up. It's the worthless activists who have nothing better to do than to find, this is a random offshoot species that nobody even living here has heard of. But we're going to sue the federal government and tell the EPA, you can't do anything because this little tiny species.
They influence EPA policy. Would you agree?
Yes.
They have big mouths and they influence EPA policy. So the good news is we're seeing some common sense re-injected into policy making. The permitting process has been streamlined because we have a business person in the White House, and he surrounded himself with business thinking people as opposed to a bunch of ideologues. I can't make that more clear, honestly. It really is.
That's why all their policies suck.
It's pragmatism.
Because they're all knee-jerk reactions in response to the baying of the bleeding heart blowhards that put them into office. They start screaming. Democrat politicians start having knee-jerk reactions and pulling levers and triggers, and we wind up paying the price.
100%. So they said 2026 they expect the price of oil and thus by relationship the price of gas to continue to fall, even below where it is today. However, this is something we've pointed out on the show even before the president was elected in 2024. They said it's not sustainable for our industry that we will see a moderation of that and an equilibrium achieved by the middle to the end of 26, in which case we got to see the price. This is the oil executives talking, of course. We need to see the price of oil in the $65 to $85 a barrel range. So just for comparative purposes, it's sitting right around 61, 63. It actually fell below 60 last week, got down in the $57 a barrel range, and then eased back up. But what they're saying is they expect after that the price of oil to kind of settle in that $65 to $85 a barrel range. Well, that means your price at the pump goes up 10 to 20% over what it is today. He's kind of calling this not quite the low point, but sometime in 26. Now, these, again, are oil and gas executives, and remember, oil is a globally traded commodity. Despite what politicians want you to believe, the oil and gas companies don't control the price of oil. What they control is the supply, period. They don't control the demand side of the equation, only the supply. And so I would say that's good news. That would be somewhat disinflationary, not deflationary. We don't want to see prices start to pull back so much that it portends a recession. That means, hey, demand is so low that we got to give this stuff away. That's not good. But what we want to see is disinflation, meaning we get down to a very low level of continuous inflation. The goal, of course, 2%. That's the Fed's goal. Last week we got the report. It was sitting around 3%. So that's what's going on there. I just thought that was interesting, this resurgence of the Permian Basin and the extraction of oil and the unbelievable technology invented in this country. Completely changed, did it not, Rhino, the landscape of the oil and gas production business in this country. The invention of hydraulic fracking, so forth. And again, technology was the key there to producing this new approach to finding oil where prior to fracking, we just can't get to it. We know it's there, we just can't get to it.
Well, we could. It was just a little bit more dangerous than hydraulic fracking. They lowered torpedoes down the well and blew them up.
Also expensive is a big part of that as well. All right, we're stepping aside for a break. Jim Leggette, lecturer of economics at Mississippi State, is coming up next.
From the Seabrook.com. From 2 to 3 on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Days with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I was a little too tall, could have used a few pounds. Tight pants points, all in and out. She was a black-haired beauty with big dark eyes and points all her own, sitting way up high.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio, kicking off a brand new week. It's our pleasure to welcome now Jim Leggette, lecturer of economics at Mississippi State University. Jim, good to see you again, man. What's going on?
Greetings. Enjoyed your conversation about energy. What's two things kind of struck me about that. We know in the history of mankind, less and less expensive energy moves the bar forward. You think about moving from sail to steam and all that other stuff. The other thing that little footnote from history, we think, it was Reagan's negotiations with the Soviets brought that down the evil empire, which is true. But we hit them in the wallet because the Saudis in 86 or 87 flooded the world with cheap oil. And you kind of have to wonder, are we seeing that movie again?
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. And, of course, something else that we should also point out, no doubt that because energy is included in every good and service. It requires energy. We know that. And, honestly, our wealth, largely, Jim, I think you would agree, has been attained because innovation allowed us to produce more energy. We figured out ways to produce more, how to produce it, and not only that, but how to deliver it. And then we came up with more stuff that, hey, you know what? With energy, we can actually create this and that and the other. But the second thing I was going to get your take on that I remember studying as an economics student, which is the speed at which you can move goods and services through the market, has a huge impact on overall economic prosperity and output. And if you think about today's world being a digital one, where we can move goods and services virtually instantly, has that not been a major contributor to our wealth?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the, we think about the world we've seen happen to us in the last 30 years, and we talk about the internet and all the other things, but you know what the sleeper is? The container ship. Water is the cheapest way to move stuff. And the container ship broke that bottleneck where you had to have longshoremen unload it, and you had to be really careful about how you unloaded it. And of course, if I were loading it, stuff I really want is down at the bottom. So that's two went in tandem to your point.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, you and I remember when Ronald Reagan took over, one of the first things he did was lift the speed limit on the interstates. You remember that? The Carter days of,
I do.
We're running out of gas. We got to lower the speed limit to 55. Well, that had a negative impact on our economy because the primary means of transporting goods in those days was via truck. But the trucks were going 55. We bumped it to 70, and economic bliss broke out.
And what was that? Since you guys are aficionados of classic rock like myself, the guy who had that song, I Can't Drive 55.
Yeah, Sammy Hagar. That's right.
Yeah, I think he was complaining about driving, how much extra time it was taking to go from L.A. to San Francisco.
Absolutely. All right, so...
But to your point, yeah, you might have saved a little energy, but you wasted a bunch of time.
Oh, it's exactly right. And, I mean, it was like a godsend when the speed limit, it was pretty hard because our interstates weren't designed around driving 55. They were built around driving 70, if not even faster. Today's vehicles are so reliable and so stable. They can go much faster, and you have to be careful. That's why we have cruise controls, because the next thing you know, wait, I'm doing 90. I thought I was doing 70.
Guilty.
All right, so we're day 27. We've been talking about it, the old government shutdown. I don't know, Jim. It looks to me like we may eclipse the old record of 35 days. I know another vote's scheduled for today. Both sides, more on a political perspective, are dug in. But how about this starting to affect the GDP of the country?
Well, at some point it will, because the government's not doing stuff, and GDP government purchases are roughly speaking 20+%. But more importantly, if you haven't been paid, that's a problem. And I was managing my credit card account a few minutes ago, and there's a thing right on top of the Chase website. If you're a government employee affected by the shutdown, and the other thing that's kind of subtle, I guess when you think about economics, everything's interrelated. If the government worker doesn't work, that means he doesn't buy gas. That means his lunch spot doesn't have business. The daycare people don't get paid. So I think we're playing with fire here. Maybe you and I talk about it. Well, I happen to think, while I get the principle of the debt limit, it doesn't accomplish the goal, and it gives you a point of failure.
Yeah.
I think we're doing ourselves a disservice.
Yeah, and, both sides are blaming the other, so that's the political gamesmanship one can certainly expect. And honestly, this thing's probably going to get resolved here before the end of the year, if not in the next few days. And when we get into the midterms, I don't know. I think most people just tend to forget about it at that point, even though both sides are trying to leverage this for their political futures. I don't know. One thing I do know, though, is that we just added $1 trillion to the debt in the shortest period of time in history. I'm sure you've seen that. So I just don't see. I don't see any end to the $2 trillion annual deficits. What do you think?
Well, unfortunately, I think I agree with you. everything's so dug in. And as hopeful as I was about Elon Musk and Doge, I'm not sure what they accomplished.
Nothing.
It may be like that. Is it Shakespeare? It had that line, sound and fury signifying nothing.
Exactly. You don't even talk about it. It was all the rage every day, and now it doesn't even come up in the cycle.
And in fact, when I was following it, they couldn't even nail their numbers. Were like nailing Jello to the wall.
Yeah.
And I kind of concluded, you guys are ahead of your headlights because you put down all these numbers that have a. And part of it, if you don't know what you're looking at, you're going to mess it up. Like all the dead people who really weren't on the Social Security roll.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what you're looking at, it could easily leap to that conclusion. And then I've done it myself. And then when you dig into a little deeper, it's wait a minute, I wasn't as smart as I thought I was.
Right. Yeah. Well, to your point, I remember when I was reviewing that site on a regular basis, and there was one item, I can't remember what it was, but they had reported, hey, we're saving $8 billion here, and then the next, and I said, that sounds really high. And like the next day, they had edited the site, and it had 800,000 on it. So they had just some.
Oh, I'm okay with 800,000, but there's a couple orders of magnitude difference.
I just don't know, and of course, as you well know, the government is squabbling over the discretionary component of government spending, which is 25% of the total. And there's no interest in touching the mandatory side.
And then everybody, last person who even brought it up, they skewered him. I'm thinking about Paul Ryan.
Yeah.
I remember one of his classic comments where they were talking about it. He just, guys, it's math.
It's just math, right?
To get your constituency this. And what we know about math, and that's probably why we all hate it, is it's pretty unforgiving.
That's exactly right. And math is objective.
When you're 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so this has caused a problem. Now, it does appear the markets, as you know, are happy today because the president, and certainly his Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, announced we have a, quote, framework for a trade deal with China. And we don't have a lot of details, but it is fairly comprehensive. He talked about TikTok, about soybean purchases, rare earth metals, and so forth. And seems like there's a possible breakthrough there. The markets are reacting very positively to that. That could change the trajectory.
Well, that's right. I think the markets are kind of holding their breath on this sort of stuff. But, I like the terminology, framework, because I always thought it could be a leader in the private sector. It could be heads of state. If you just put people in a room, no telling what the heck they're going to come up with, most time it's bad. In fact, I had a boss, they would never let him go anywhere without a handler, and I got to be the handler. That was a lot of fun. But the idea to have a framework, and then they have some issues, the lower levels can't work it out, so they give a little give and take there. Yeah. And then so that's, because Reagan, I don't want Reagan this morning because I was reading the Wall Street Journal about it. He wouldn't want to have, there's pressure to go talk to Russians. He said, one, they keep dying, but two, more importantly, we have something to talk about. I'm wasting everybody's time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're up against a break right here. If you can hang around, we got a couple of more things to talk about. We got a short segment after this one. You good?
I'm good. Let's do it.
All right. We'll be right back with Jim Leggette, Lecturer of Economics, Mississippi State University. Stay with us.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
There you go. Driving 55 there, just for you, Jim. Jim
and
Leggette.
that might be our most memorable contribution for today.
So, just looking at the markets again that are reacting positively, the 10-year is still hanging around that 4. It's 4.015%, which is certainly better than 4.445 that we had not too terribly long ago. The question is, do you think the Fed is going to see clear to put in another rate decrease? A quarter point is expected here in their next meeting. Because, the inflation report we just got was a little disappointing. It came in lower than expected, but 3% on an annualized basis is a full percent above the 2% target.
Yeah, if it was me, but I tend to be more concerned about this stuff, the answer would be no. But now, since I'm not chairman of the Fed, my opinion doesn't really count here. At least I don't get a vote. I think they've so telegraphed that extra 0.25%, which really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. I think they'll go ahead and do it because I think it's baked in. But anybody who had hopes of a 0.5% or so, you can forget that one.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But
here's the challenge the Fed had.
We may get a 0.5 point over 2 rate adjustments.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Just kind of.
And it wasn't on sale.
Phasing it in. But are you surprised that the 10-year hasn't reacted the way I think it was expected to after the last rate cut?
Well, I think they're kind of they're in a wait and see because I think they're looking at all this, I'll call it the storm of this tariff cloud.
Yeah.
They don't know whether it's going to be like that hurricane that's going to slam Jamaica or a gentle summer thunderstorm that pops away. I think the other among the many challenges the Fed has, we didn't get October unemployment data, and we're probably not going to get November.
Yeah.
That's one of the most, and they can cobble it together with other sources, but it's kind of like your speedometer failed, and you go figure out how to get there. So, but that's my hunch, and I think they have one more meeting around early December.
I think that's right.
And,
yeah.
But to your point, the 3 is disappointing, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. But as you said, the tariffs are still a bit unknown. There are a lot of reports that there was a lot of in advance buying to avoid the onset of the tariffs by importers, so they were stocking up on inventory. Of course, there's limited, on how much they can do there. They can't buy a long-term amount of inventory, but they were doing some pre-buying there to avoid.
Plus, you can eat it for a while.
Yeah, that's right, and that's the other thing. That's the other report that I'm seeing is that at this point, American importers are absorbing. I think I saw maybe it was a Bloomberg article in their surveys indicated about 65% of the tariff expense was being absorbed by American importers, about a quarter of it being absorbed by exporters, foreign exporters, and the rest passed on to consumers.
Yeah, I think a couple of reasons for doing that. While I understand the dynamics of price increases, they are disruptive, particularly the big ones. And you really don't want to take that PR hit, or more importantly, you don't want to be the first guy in your industry to take that hit. And let's also be clear, you don't want to be on the end of a midnight Trump social rant.
Yeah.
Or Truth Social, I should say.
Yeah.
I said Trump Social. Maybe that was
yeah.
Maybe I said the right name after all.
Truth Social, same deal. So it remains to be seen whether or not those will clock in and affect inflation in this country. But on the other hand, as you probably heard us talking about earlier in the show, the optimism from the oil and gas industry, well, it's not optimistic for them. It's optimistic for consumers that we may be seeing prices fall even further. That's what the big guys are expecting in 26, and that could offset tariffs potentially.
I think it would. And then what I found fascinating about it, I wish I had, you and I probably know the same guys, but guys who in that business talking about it. And one that sort of boggles my mind is you drill down and the bit can take a right-hand turn.
Yeah, that's bizarre. I agree.
And I'm going, wait a minute, I'm not sure they have that drill bit in Lowe's.
It's fascinating technology, and it totally changed the landscape. I mean, you think about when you and I remember the Carter era, when you could only buy gas on certain days, we were running out, and there was all this doom and gloom and fear-mongering, and now look today, they're worried about oversupply 50 years later.
In fact, and then it was 2008 when we hit $4 a gallon, everybody thought the world was ending.
Yeah.
And that high price triggered all this stuff. So that's, while it hurt for a while, it's pretty, I'll take this trade.
Yeah. What's the saying? Low prices can often solve low prices in that industry, I think is what they say. Jim, appreciate you joining us. Enjoyed the conversation as always. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate the music selection.
You bet. All right. Jim Leggette, economics lecturer. See you at Mississippi State University. We're coming right back after Fox News and SuperTalk News.
Of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord. Haven't been home in a year or more. I hope she holds on a little longer.
Welcome back, everyone. It is hour 2 of Middays. It's Monday. That means Ricky Matthews' SuperTalk Outdoors comes your way at 12:05 today. Big day in Oxford. Wednesday. We got Richard Cross is going to be, I believe, on the campus broadcasting mornings, right, on Wednesday, giving us a lay of the land there because the vice president's coming in, along with Erica Kirk. And they are part of the big Turning Point USA event scheduled at the Pavilion in Oxford coming up this Wednesday. That's really going to be something. All eyes will be focused on the University of Mississippi with the vice president in town and Erica Kirk, the widow of the late, great Charlie Kirk. It's a big deal. Really is. It's going to be something. I'm planning to attend, but still waiting on approval to get in. They are understandably prioritizing students' admission to the event, and they should. So everybody else, it's kind of a first-come, first-served basis. It's my understanding. If you are not a student and have not registered to attend and have a ticket. So that's how that's going to work. Looking forward to that. Should be a big deal. Let's see. The left and the West has the same regard for life as the Chinese communists, says Mark from Tupelo. Yep, could be. Let's see. Randy and Starkville sent us a little GIF there. It looks like it's chimpanzees in a vehicle. He says that's the Democrats arriving back at work. Oh, wow. So on the C Spire text line, how do we go about ensuring that stupid people don't get elected to Congress? I said we just got to vote for people that aren't stupid.
I would go one step further because voting is only ever so often in your daily life. Shame the heck out of people that are dumber than a box of rocks. Bring back shame. If they don't feel it, at least everybody else will feel it for them.
Make shame great again.
Because until these idiots figure out that they're idiots, then they're going to continue being idiots.
Well, I've always thought that idiots, dumb people, think they know everything, and smart people know their limitations. I really do totally believe that. And this person wrote back and said, apparently there are a lot of idiots voting, unfortunately. Oh, man. Let's see. Scott and Clinton, we were talking about the speed limit, and he pointed out, 55 miles per hour for trucks in Illinois. And so that sounded a little suspicious. I did research that. Scott's pretty close, though. It's 65 on the rural interstates in Illinois and 55 on urban and limited access roads. I think the 65, honestly, is ridiculous. Well, what does that mean, Rhino? Rural interstates. Shouldn't you have a higher speed limit in the rural areas on interstates? Like, that sounds to me like less traffic, fewer people, more safe, less risk.
To apply logic to Illinois' laws that were written by some of the most illogical people on the planet.
Oh, man, that's so true. I don't know. That just seems like it's opposite. It seems like that maybe it makes sense to reduce the price on speed on interstates in congested urban areas, but not rural. That just sounds bass-backwards to me. But I did confirm it. There literally is a publication about regulation and law governing semi-truck travel in Illinois. They actually have a whole bunch of laws associated with it. That's the first problem right there, it seems to me like. Man, oh, man. Oh, geez. Let's see here.
Have you seen what's got the media rankled, I guess is the proper word, when it comes to the press pool that's traveling with Trump to Japan?
What are they mad about?
The Japanese emperor's team basically sat them all down and gave them a little briefing that you will not be allowed to shout questions in the direction of the Japanese emperor, because that will be considered assault and you will be arrested.
Oh, my gosh. The Japanese emperor.
So it got the press pool all kind of rankled.
So, you know what always bothers me about that in their systems, in their cultures, is they truly do hold up the emperor as some sort of superhuman, actually beyond human, not even equate them to humans. You know, in God's eyes, you're just a human, nothing more or less.
Yeah, who's the, it's the sun goddess, Amaterasu, is that? Yeah, Amaterasu is who they believe the line of the emperors descend from.
It's unbelievable. Well, what's the saying? I know that we Catholics on Ash Wednesday, when we have the ashes placed on our forehead and the sign of the cross, I'm paraphrasing a bit. I can't remember the exact words, but it's from ashes you came and to ashes you shall return. It's really all about reminding you of your humanity and your mortality. It's a pretty good message there, and that applies to kings and emperors as well, it turns out. So it's kind of ridiculous. I've always felt that was just ridiculous, and we in this country, of course, to some extent revere our president, our elected officials, but not quite in the same way, I would say. And those who step that and take that further, shame on them, because they shouldn't. So that's why this whole No Kings rally crap we had a couple of weeks ago was so dumb, because these are the same people that celebrate kingly type edicts, right, such as we experienced during the COVID period. You just know they were just...
Or Biden trying to implement a constitutional amendment with a tweet.
Yeah, I remember that. But that's fine, right, because that's what they want. That's the double standard hypocrisy of the whole deal.
Because multiple generations of liberals have lived under a system that was basically a house of cards built by the Supreme Court with lawmakers in robes.
Totally true. And that ain't the way it's supposed to work. And that's why...
If we can get the Supreme Court to strike down all the stupid crap we've had implemented since the 70s and everything they can't strike down, have Congress do away with everything Jimmy Carter and Bunch did, then maybe we can get back to actually having an America.
That was something, wasn't it? I totally agree. Man,
pretty much everything Jimmy Carter did sucks. Pretty much everything Obama did sucks. Pretty much everything the Supreme Court ruled on when they had too many liberal justices sucked. So maybe, just maybe, we're back on the right track.
I hope so. And that means a whole lot less of it, honestly. And it again, the point's well made in the fossil fuels industry. You just get government the hell out of the way. I mean, I got to tell you, listening to these executives at these oil and gas companies, these are really smart people. They not only understand the industry and all the nuances and the technical aspect of that, they understand the business reality of things. That's who you want running these companies. And they get the ebbs and flows of supply and demand, and they understand that, hey, look, we're going to have excess supply. That's going to drive the cost down. We don't like it. It's hard for us to turn a profit, honestly. You get in that $55 a barrel range, the numbers don't work. But they also know that an equilibrium will be achieved. This is just the dynamics of free markets. And that is one commodity where you could argue there are more market dynamics framing it and controlling it than in many other industries where there are lots of regulations and crazy things that have a tendency to distort natural demand and supply. It was fascinating. I enjoyed it. And it makes you proud to be an American because these are American companies. And guess what? They hire lots of American people. And these are very well high-paying jobs. And they interviewed some of those guys out doing that fracking. Man, that is incredible. We should be proud. This is American innovation and ingenuity at its best. And here's the difference, Rhino. On the left, it's you just got to do without. It's Carter, 55. It's in recent memory. We gotta all go to EVs, right, and stop cooking your pizzas with natural gas. And these are innovators that I saw out in Texas saying we're figuring out a way to get more oil out of the ground safely. Man, that's the way it's supposed to work. I get fired up about that. Sorry about that, but it's so true. Just get
because the left's full of losers, and losers don't innovate.
That's so true. Coming right back. Stay with us.
From the Seabrook Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Let's go.
So the big shutdown largely centered around the extension of the enhanced subsidies in the Affordable Care Act exchanges, the online marketplaces. Well, I think you're right. You said something about this morning that we may all forget about that being the crux of this conflict, of this impasse. When folks stop getting their SNAP benefits, their food stamps, which would be November 1st, right?
Yep, Saturday.
Yeah, and that could trigger chaos in the streets here of these United States. Lots of concerns about that. I think that's a valid concern. 41 million people, it turns out, receive and participate in the SNAP program, receive benefits. Did a little research over the weekend on what the profile is. First, of recipients. First is your household income. Now, that's supposed to be, and the reason I qualify it with supposed to be, Rhino, something we've talked about many times, because that's pretty dang difficult to ascertain. There's so many people living in multiple households, don't file tax returns, work in a cash economy, and then you have people administering the program, as you like to describe them, as it's not my problem people. you add all that up, and shockingly, you end up with, we don't really know if you're eligible or not. But the program rules are that the household income has got to be less than 130% of the federal poverty level for those in the household to qualify for SNAP benefits. Now, 130% of the federal poverty level, and of course that's based on the number in the household. For one, that's about $15,000 a year of income, equals 100% of the federal poverty level. So 130%, roughly $20,000 for one. And then it goes up from that based on the number. It's adjusted somewhat, not as a multiple of one, because the assumption is there are fixed costs, of course, that are being borne by multiple parties in the household. But I was surprised to find out, according to official USDA reports, that's all we have to rely on at this point, many of the households do have earned income, about a third. Only 20% have gross monthly income above the federal poverty line. The average SNAP household's monthly gross income is $872, and net income is $398. Talking about a month. That was surprising to me. Only 4% of all SNAP households and only 10% of SNAP households with children receive benefits through the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program. In other words, and that's cash money, the TANF money. People know about that here in the state of Mississippi because of the scandal regarding TANF funds a couple of years ago through the Department of Human Services. That's how it's administered, down from the federal government. And it's a very small amount of money that goes to a household on a temporary basis. It's considered like a bridge, if you will, if you're between income, between jobs, between some means of supporting yourself or your family. Very small amount of money. So this is a concern in that we have 41 million people in this country. Now, that includes a lot of children that live in these households, so they're obviously not working. The same thing is with the Medicaid program. The Medicaid program in Mississippi serves about 750,000 Mississippians. Over 420,000 of them are kids that live in households that qualify for said benefits. So this is, it's just amazing to me that in this country we can't get more people working in jobs in a household now to get them above 130% of the federal poverty level. It's just kind of shocking to me. 41 million. And the SNAP benefits aren't that much. I don't know if you've seen the chart on that, but it doesn't even seem to me like it's enough to eat, to sustain. But I know that folks can get creative. I do think there's lots of misspending. I know you're shocked at that. My favorite saying that I coined years ago is, where there's big government spending, there's big waste, fraud, and abuse. So the eligibility at 130% of the federal poverty level, I mean, that's not a lot of money. And then you look at the amount that they receive, well, that's not a lot either. I don't know, man. I don't see how they make it work. It just seems like that there are opportunities in this country to get out and release oneself from being shackled to the government. I don't know. And relying on these benefits to make ends meet and to eat. Just amazing to me. But that's where we are, and I do think it's going to be a huge, huge issue. There are general work requirements for SNAP benefits, But if you're taking care of a child under 6 or an incapacitated person, you're exempt from that if you can't work because of a physical or mental limitation. I do think that there are a lot of scams and misinformation, provision of inaccurate information as far as one achieving disabled status where I have a headache every 2 weeks, I can't work. I mean, that does actually happen, does it not? And they get approved for the plethora of benefits from the federal government because they're deemed as disabled on that basis. Now, that's not to say that there aren't people who are legitimately incapacitated and disabled. Maybe they need a hand. I certainly get that. But I do think that there are a lot of people that fake their status.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And
I used to live across the street from a family that was bad about it.
That's just terrible.
The matriarch of the family claimed she was agoraphobic, which, if you're unfamiliar with that, it's basically a fear of being outside, a fear of the sun.
And that would...
And she was always outside with that little grandbaby, running around in the yard and working on her garden. But the second she was headed to the doctor, it was cover her up, put her in the back seat, make her look like she's acting crazy.
Oh, geez, that's just terrible. So that somebody signed off and said, yeah, okay, you're disabled. Boom, have at all the benefits.
Well, you obviously can't go to a 9 to 5 if you're afraid of the sun.
Okay, I see. Afraid of the sun. So, like 130% of the poverty line for a family of 3 is is $2,888 a month, or $34,656 a year. Incredible. Oh man! So that's what's
But you also have to include all the other benefits that if you are eligible for SNAP, you're likely eligible for and taking advantage of, like TAMF, like Section 8,
housing
like
assistance.
energy assistance, like Obama phones,
Medicaid.
You start adding all of that up for a family of 3, napkin math here, let's see. You're looking at between $25,000 a year, and then if you add in Section 8, on average, you're looking at $40,000 to $50,000 a year of benefits.
Unbelievable.
And if you're at the limit, say you're at $34,000, so you got what? Let's see, doing math on the air is hard, I know, but let's just do the big one. $50,000 plus $34,000, that's $74,000.
Unbelievable.
So if they get a job that pays $37,000 a year, you're no longer eligible for that $70,000.
There absolutely is. But so for that family of 3, their average benefit is $588 a month of SNAP, of food stamps. $588 a month. I know you've talked about that before, how you can get creative and make that stretch throughout a month, right, to feed a family of 3. It just seems...
Well, you got to remember the S in SNAP, supplemental. That's $500-something a month on top of the nearly $3,000 they're taking home a month.
You're right. I get it. I understand. Yeah, you're right about that. So, man, we're stepping aside for a break. Van Halen bumping us out. Coming right back.
Middays with Gerard Gibert. It is on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth Studio. So, again, this this controversy, if you could call it that, up in Washington concerning the extension of the ACA enhanced subsidies. You know, in politics, I guess it's just become the status quo, the expected, the typical scenario where elected leaders, politicians, when they're trying to make a point, always are going to use the extremes. Both sides. I'm being honest and fair here. Both sides. And I want to discuss that with respect to these enhanced subsidies. Because both sides are using the extreme cases to make their point. In the middle of usually, and it applies here, is where the truth is. And I'll give you an example. You've no doubt seen, we've played clips of Democrat members of Congress and just other Democrat figures who talk about the significant and a spike in premiums if the enhanced subsidies are not allowed to continue and they just expire, which is what they're set to do right now, without action on the part of the Congress to continue them. And they use cases. They use examples. They love to do this, right? But it's always the most extreme, egregious, off-the-chart example. And they want the normal American voter to think that's the typical average scenario. And it's not. So
I don't know if that necessarily applies to Amy Klobuchar's example.
What'd she say?
Well, she gave an example of a couple that retired early.
I'm about to get to that one. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think she really thought that one through. Then again, I don't think she actually saw it before it went out. It was on her Twitter.
Well, and so here's the problem. To your point, I think is where you're going here, and help me out if I'm not, is that what the hell did you retire early for? You know why you did? Because you knew the government would pick up your insurance, right? That's the point, and that was dumb on her part. And that's the case. That's the example they're using is a typical couple that makes, you've heard the figure, $85,000 a year, right? And they pick $85,000 because that is 400% of the federal poverty level for a couple, for a household of two. And so what they'll say is, oh my gosh, that household of two that presently pays about $602 a month are going to see their insurance go to $1,500 a month, a $900 increase if the enhanced subsidies aren't extended. That's absolutely right. Except, here's what she's not telling you, Rhino. If you make $84,600, which is $400 less than the $85,000, well, then the situation's totally different. Then you'd be paying $693. I did do the math on all this over the weekend. $693 a month. In other words, an increase of $91 a month. So let's recap. If you make $85,000 as a couple, your premiums are going from roughly $600 to $1,500. That's a huge spike. You make $84,600 from $602 to $693, a $91. $900 versus $91 for making $400 more of income. That's why it's called the subsidy cliff. So what she's saying is true, except that doesn't account for the vast majority of people that get their coverage in the exchanges. Those are the people who were above 400% of the federal poverty level, because that's one of the things the bill did, the Biden bill did, was it ended the subsidy cliff. Now, on the other hand, got to be honest here, the Republicans, you've heard them say, it's just not fair that people making $500,000 a year are getting subsidies. Well, the problem with that is that subsidies only kick in when your cost of coverage exceeds 8.5% of your income. So you'd have to have insurance that cost $41,200 a year before you'd get a dime of subsidies. So insurance has certainly gone up a lot, but I don't think any policies cost $41,000 a year. I'm not aware of any. Think about that. A couple now, because that's the example that you're hearing from our friends on the right. They're making $500,000 and they're getting subsidies. No, not really, unless their coverage costs more than $41,000. Actually, it's $42,500 to be exact. $42,500, because that's 8.5% of $500,000. So, again, somewhere in the middle is the truth. I agree with the Republicans.
Yeah, the middle that's the truth is the Democrats shoved Obamacare down America's throat and broke the health care system. Then they put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound during COVID.
Completely agree.
And now they're complaining because lack of planning on their part supposedly constitutes an emergency on everybody's part.
And again, it goes back to COVID, where we just did a bunch of crazy, rash things for political gain. That had nothing to do but trying to buy votes, right? That was what that was all about. Well, yeah, we can attribute it to COVID. And now you hear a lot of folks on the right say, well, why didn't they make it permanent? The reason they didn't make it permanent is because you have to have 60 votes. We've been through that a million times. And so they fitted in the reconciliation rules by making it only endure for 4 years. And that's where we are. In fact, it was a year. You remember, it was temporary for COVID for a year, and then the Inflation Reduction Act came out, and they said, well, let's just go ahead and we figured out with a parliamentarian here that we can extend it for another 3. That's how we ended up with a 12/31/2025 expiration. It's all about that. Now, there's been some talk. You've seen this in the Congress about maybe the Republicans should end the filibuster in that rule. And I
think that's being
open to
put
government
forth by Democrat operatives because that would be a Democrat dream.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. But there's been some discussion of that. I think Fetterman's actually even suggested that, right? He's proposed that. Yeah, you Republicans just ought to end it because he's one of the 3 Democrats that voted in favor of the continuing resolution. So, again, I'm just pointing out that there's nuance. And I just wish that all these elected people would be a little bit more comprehensive in their analysis. They're not wrong. It's just that you're only given a small part of the story here. It's like with the Democrats saying, well, the couple making $85,000 is going to go from $600 to $1,500 a month. Oh, my God, the world's falling apart. But if they back their income down by $400, it's $90 a month. But to your point, and this is where Klobuchar sounded like a dunce, what the hell did you retire for at 60? You're just lazy. Am I wrong in saying that? You're lazy. Oh, I can go ahead and get some form of Social Security, but this is the best part. Dear, the government will pay for our insurance. Instead of $18,000 a year, it's $7,000 a year. Oh, we can make ends meet on that basis. So they made that decision based on government welfare. They stopped working and contributing to society because, wow, look at this welfare out here. That is what it is. It's welfare. It's redistribution. And make no mistake, to your point about Obamacare, you think it's about health care? It's not. It's redistribution. At the core of Obamacare was you take from this group and you give to this group. Every single thing, every aspect of every provision is just a series of, in accounting lingo, debits and credits. Take from this group, give to that group. That's what the crux of that law was all about. With a bunch of goofy insurance reforms sprinkled in there, such as you like to point out. I don't want to pay for having a kid. I'm not going to have a child. I can't. I'm a man. Despite what the left in this country says, we're not showing up pregnant, ever. Unbelievable. But that's absolutely right. Kevin from Brandon points out, we're talking about the massive amount of fraud and defrauding that occurs of these government programs. He says, I knew a woman who got government assistance because her daughter was severely overweight. She would feed her 10-year-old 2 Big Mac meals, supersized for lunch daily. She said if her daughter lost weight, she would lose her food stamps and disability. Oh, man. I don't doubt it, Kevin. I really don't. Unbelievable. Ben from Madison says, 100% agree, ending the filibuster would be the worst possible outcome. Once Dems have control of the Senate, they'll use it for all kinds of crazy stuff. And that's been talked about. And I think most clear-thinking Republicans know that absolutely is, to your point, Ben, the risk in that respect. He also asked, are any thoughts about Steve Banting guaranteeing Trump will run and win? It would be a third term.
No, Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon, I'm sorry. Coming right back.
Polyumpa, Mississippi.
Are we going to do this?
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back. It's Middays. It's Monday. So the president has sent America's largest aircraft carrier to the Caribbean. It's being reported. I think he's trying to crack down on the drug cartels. Honestly, Rhino, it feels like literally engaging our military in this fight against these drug cartels may be the only way to make them go away. It seems like everything else we've tried has failed. And I'm not a fan of the president, the chief executive officer of the country, the commander-in-chief, for just unilaterally waging war. I don't know that I'd call it this. And there are some exceptions that permit our president to deploy the U.S. military. And those are subjective, right? So if somebody wants to gripe about this, they could certainly take the U.S. government and the president to court. Good luck in trying to fight his action here of deploying the U.S. military to fight against these cartels who are harming this nation in a big way and have been for decades. And all the efforts of the past decades have not, I don't think, yielded any benefit. The so-called war against drugs. How much dang money have we spent on that? And it's achieved nothing. Now, on the other hand, I think we have a problem in this country that too many people want to put that crap in their body. And I also have this unwavering belief that as long as people want to put it in their body, somebody's going to figure out a way to sell it to them. But the cartels largely have been ignored by, and I use the term loosely, leadership in the countries where they operate. I don't have any proof of this, but it sure does feel like there's some bribery perhaps going on there, some underhanded financial enrichment for those nations' leaders to look the other way and let them function and operate. If they just address it internally within their borders, the U.S. wouldn't have to get involved. But their target is this country because that's where the money is. That's where the demand is. On the C Spire text line, these entitlements are just a way to buy votes and create government dependency. Communities and churches did fine helping those that actually needed help prior. I hear you. I think it's a bit unrealistic to assume that you could just transfer all that responsibility over to churches. For example, health care, food, and housing. Let's just take health care, Medicaid. Take Medicaid and the SNAP program. combined government spending on those in Mississippi is about $9 billion a year. There are, I think, last I checked, just over 300 churches, congregations in the state of Mississippi. So if we just said, hey, look, you guys split that up, take care of it, that'd be $28 million a year per church. That ain't possible. Now, let's say that, okay, we don't need all those benefits, and a lot of those are illegitimate. Cut in half. Okay, it's $14 million per church. That's not possible. It's not realistic. It's absolutely true, but in the old days, you didn't have all the access to all the various health care that we have today.
How many churches did you say there were?
I thought it was over 300 separate congregations. What did you come up with? What did you see? Am I off? Low?
I mean, the Clarion Ledger in 2017 said there were 364 congregations.
Oh.
But if you look at something like the Mississippi Baptist Convention Board, they claim that they're a network of over 2,000 different churches.
Okay.
And according to the Google
Why the
Box
big discrepancy?
AI, the overall count is 2,863 religious organizations and churches listed in Mississippi.
Okay. $5 million a church on that basis a year. That's not possible. $5 million per church. Just for those programs. Just for that.
What if half of it's waste? It was $2.5 million?
Per church. Some of these churches have 10 people in them. Right? So you'd have to really look at the number of congregants. Let's just say that everybody in the state is in a church. Will you be
According to the Mississippi Baptist Convention Board, there are 525,000 Baptists alone.
I believe that. I absolutely believe that's right. Okay. So we could do the math on that. But is that practical? You just want to say, hey, you guys pick up the tab. I don't think so. Coming right back.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.